What was she hiding in the beat-up trunk of that old Civic? The laughter was sharp. It was cruel. It echoed across the firing range at Camp Pendleton. 30 Marines stood there. Force recon uniforms. Shoulder to shoulder. They were smirking. They were whispering. They were recording. A woman was placing a rifle on a steel table. The rifle was shocking. It was rose-colored. It was a Barrett M82, chambered in .50 caliber. A weapon of war. Painted pink. Is that a Hello Kitty toy? The voice belonged to Gunnery Sergeant Michael Rodriguez. His tattooed arms were crossed. His voice dripped with distilled disdain. It was meant to wound. The Marines roared again. A collective, toxic sound of superiority. Phones lifted higher. They were ready to capture the humiliation. This wasn't just a range day. This was a very public execution of pride. And Emily Carter stood in the crosshairs. 28 years old. Faded gray shirt. Worn-out fatigues. Dusted with mud from a life they couldn't imagine. They saw an influencer. They saw a joke. They saw everything but the truth. Corporal Madison Brooks, blonde hair tucked neatly, sneered into her live stream. Her channel was called Marine Barbie. "Family, you're about to see Barbie Sniper embarrass herself," she purred. In front of real Marines. The feed viewership spiked. Emily Carter didn't flinch. She moved with calm precision. Every action was economical. Every movement was practiced. She unpacked gear from a dented, old 2008 Honda Civic. The car was a relic. A survivor. Its dents were scars. Its body a whisper of hard times. The only visible imperfection on Emily was the tremor. Her hands shook. They shook rhythmically. A mechanical, persistent movement. At first it looked like fear. A beautiful, predictable anxiety. The kind that makes men believe they are safe. But Master Sergeant Jake Sullivan stood near the ammunition station. He was silent. He was watching. He felt a different kind of tremor. Deep in his memory. Afghanistan, 2012. He'd seen that shake before. It wasn't fear, he realized. It was a symptom. It was nerve damage. The cold fingerprint of combat. Something only a veteran could recognize. The mockery continued. A wall of noise. Designed to break her. Barbie Sniper is about to live stream her own meltdown, Lance Corporal Tyler Webb shouted. He tossed bills in the air. Bets were placed. 100-1 against the Rose rifle. The odds ballooned with every passing second. Emily Carter stayed silent. She was ignored in the loudest possible way. She was a ghost in her own narrative. She focused on her equipment. Her movements were slow. They were careful. Her brown hair caught the morning sun. She was setting up. The tremor was not random. It was a clock. It ticked at perfect, unyielding intervals. 4.7 seconds apart. The specific timing was crucial. No one but Sullivan was close enough to sense the terrifying control beneath the movement. She retrieved specialized shooting glasses. The lenses faintly flickered. A hidden heads-up display. Data no one else could see. She pulled out a battered notebook. It was filled with wind charts. Elevation calculations. It looked less like ballistics and more like advanced physics. The silence around Emily was a threat. Rodriguez, sensing the collective boredom, leaned in. His breath was hot. His eyes narrowed like a predator. "I'll give you 2 minutes to pack up and get off my range," he sneered. "This is for real Marines, not Instagram influencers." Emily finally spoke. Her voice was calm, soft, but sharp as a razor. It stopped the laughter cold. "I'll need about 15 minutes to set up," she said. The silence fractured. The laughter returned, doubled. 15 minutes. They mocked her preparation. They pointed at her shaky hands. Rodriguez, now infuriated by her defiance, raised the stakes. He needed to win this humiliation. He needed to assert his world order. "All right, here's the deal." His voice was a challenge. "You put one round on target at 1,000 meters. You can stay. You miss, you're gone for good. Deal?" Emily didn't even look up. She continued, adjusting her scope. She murmured 6 words. A silent, impossible declaration. It stunned the crowd into a brief, fragile silence. 6,000 meters. The laughter that followed was hysterical. It was disbelief made audible. Marines clutched their sides, gasping for air. "Lady, the world record is 3,500 meters, Rodriguez scoffed. "You're not just crazy, you're mathematically impossible crazy." But Sullivan watched. He saw her touch a set of dog tags under her shirt. Her eyes briefly closed. A silent ritual of remembrance. He saw her adjust her breathing. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. It was combat breathing. The tremor, he realized, was not a malfunction. It was a metronome. A strange kind of pride began to mix with his apprehension. He was witnessing a performance, a commitment to the impossible. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The secret of the Rose rifle was about to become the secret of survival. Why did her hands shake at perfect, mechanical intervals? The tremor was a lie. It was camouflage. It hid the absolute, surgical focus beneath. The Marines, still reeling from the impossible distance claim, began to watch closer. Their mockery had been replaced by curiosity. But a curiosity laced with malice. They expected failure. A spectacular one. Emily finished her calculations. She marked wind speed and air density in her battered notebook. Every entry was written in a clean, sharp hand. The tremor only started when her hand was idle. When it worked, it was rock steady. She adjusted the specialized glasses again. They weren't safety goggles. They were a ballistics computer. A system Robert had designed. A system that fed real-time atmospheric modeling into her field of view. It was the Phantom Protocol. Advanced, classified, lethal. And she was using it in front of 30 witnesses. She lowered herself into position. The familiar feel of the cold, clean ground. The Rose rifle settled against her shoulder. It was a part of her. An extension. She checked her sight picture. The distant steel plates were barely visible dots. 6,000 meters away. They shimmered in the morning fog. The fog briefly lifted. A window of opportunity. The wind was a factor. The Coriolis effect was a factor. The curvature of the earth was a factor. But she had calculated everything. She had done the impossible math. She had committed to the impossible task. A loud, clear voice cut through the tension. Colonel Patricia Hawkins. Her presence was stern. It was instantly silencing. She was the range commander. Sullivan moved to intercept her. His voice was a low, urgent whisper. It cut through the air. "Colonel," he rasped, "that woman is using Phantom Protocol." Hawkins froze instantly. Her face went pale. "Impossible," she breathed. "Phantom Protocol is classified beyond top secret. Only 12 people on Earth know it." A new layer of mystery settled over the range. The stakes had just become existential. Emily, oblivious to their hushed exchange, continued her final checks, her breathing synchronized with the metronome of her tremor. Inhale, exhale. Each pause in the tremor was a window of perfect stillness. She was ready. She whispered 6 words. They were 6 words from a different rulebook. A different war. Clear the back blast area. Rodriguez laughed nervously. It was a weak sound. A final defense against the truth. Lady, this ain't a rocket launcher. But Sullivan didn't argue. His instincts screamed danger. He was already waving people further away. His voice was hoarse. Move, get back. The countdown began. 10 seconds. The air was heavy. Phones lowered. Heart stilled. 5 seconds. The distant target was now in her scope. Crystal clear. The crosshairs danced, impossibly tiny. 3 seconds. Her fingers settled on the trigger. It was light as a feather. A gentle pressure. 2. The tremor paused. Perfectly timed. 1. The Rose rifle sang. It wasn't the sharp crack of a normal Barrett. It was a deeper, heavier roar. A sound that seemed to bend the air itself. The recoil was swallowed, dampened by the exotic internal mechanism. A shimmering vapor trail stretched across the range. It was too fast. Too straight. 8.7 seconds of silence. The Marines held their breath. A minute silence. Then, through the spotting scopes, the impossible. A hole. Dead center. In the target. Then another plate behind it. Then another. The round tore through 5 slabs of steel. Slabs rated to stop .50 caliber fire. The laughter was gone. The silence that crashed across the range was the sound of reality shattering. Rodriguez stood rigid. His jaw slack. His world broken. Emily Carter slowly engaged the safety. Her trembling hands lowered the weapon. She didn't look at the crowd. The Rose rifle, once the morning's cruelest joke, had just rewritten the rules of engagement. And now the real game began. Had anyone ever seen a round travel for 8.7 seconds? The Marines were statues, frozen in disbelief. That's not possible, Rodriguez whispered. His voice was cracked. It was broken. 30 hardened men stood transfixed. Their phones still raised. But the recording had stopped. The moment was too big for a screen. Emily slowly bent down. She collected her single brass casing. A tiny cylinder of gold. A piece of the impossible. Her faded gray shirt shifted. And Master Sergeant Jake Sullivan saw it. Just a glimpse. His breath caught in his throat. Ink. A tattoo. Not just any ink. A small, intricate symbol on her shoulder. A mark burned into his memory. From classified briefings. His stomach turned to stone. His fear was now certainty. Colonel Sullivan rasped. His voice carried the weight of a secret war. She's got the mark, Phantom 7. Colonel Hawkins swallowed hard. Phantom 7. The name was a myth. A ghost story. The elite classified unit. Officially declared wiped out in Kandahar. 5 years ago. The broken reality of her death was a lie. The whispers started in the crowd. Confusion. Disbelief. The live stream chat, now surging past 100,000 viewers, was a battlefield of WTF and fake. Before Hawkins could process the truth. Before she could press the matter. A new sound split the morning sky. Thub, thub, thub. Helicopters. They were darker. They were sharper. They were flying too low. Too fast. Too aggressive. No markings. Ghost birds. Emily's head snapped toward the horizon. Her face showed emotion for the first time. Jaw tight, eyes sharp. The weight of recognition was heavy in her gaze. The hunters had arrived. She didn't ask. She commanded, her voice cutting through the rotor wash like a whip. Inside the range building, now. The Marines hesitated. Who was this woman? This trembling-handed stranger? To give orders. Sullivan didn't wait for permission. You heard her move, move, move. Their training. Their combat instincts. They screamed louder than rank. They followed. Rodriguez stayed a second longer, staring at Emily, his eyes searching for an answer. Who are you? He demanded. Really, who the hell are you? Emily met his stare. Her eyes were cold and clear. Someone who should have stayed buried, she said quietly. Someone who made a promise I couldn't keep hidden. The helicopters thundered closer. The unmistakable approach of the apex predator. The hunt was on. What kind of hunter travels without markings? The Marines piled into the reinforced range building. It was a concrete bunker. But against this threat, it felt like glass. The emergency lights flickered suddenly. Red. The power snapped off. Silence broken only by the approaching rotors. EMP strike, a young Marine muttered, terrified. Localized, they just fried every comms line on base. The realization of their vulnerability was a cold wave of dread. They were isolated, cut off. The entire base was blind to their plight. Emily moved with practiced calm. The tremor was worse now. The adrenaline rush of the shot had peaked. The return to reality was agonizing. She went to the back of the room. She opened what looked like a standard first aid kit. It wasn't bandages inside. It was tools. They were humming. They hummed with strange energy. She assembled a small, experimental radio. Colonel Hawkins watched, her professional detachment cracking. Colonel Hawkins, Emily said, her voice steady despite the shake. In about 60 seconds, Black Ops operators are going to breach this building. Their mission is simple: eliminate everyone here. To erase me from existence. Erase you? What are you? A Marine blurted. Emily looked straight at him. It was time for the truth. The full, painful, undeniable truth. I was the only survivor of Phantom Team 7. She spoke the words like a confession. We were betrayed by our handler, CIA operative Marcus Bishop. Sold out for cash and politics. He thought we were all dead. Bishop. The name was notorious. A clean-cut operative who had vanished 5 years ago. He hadn't vanished, Emily corrected. He cashed out. And now his masters were here. To clean up the oldest, dirtiest mess. The first explosion rocked the northern door. The reinforced steel buckled inward. A shower of concrete dust. Black-clad operators poured through the smoke. Shadow division. Silent. Slick gear. Suppressed weapons. They moved with inhuman efficiency. The room exploded into chaos. The red light made the air feel thick. Gunfire cracked. Felt more than heard. Emily Carter moved like a storm through the fire and smoke. Her Rose rifle reassembled. Her hands worked by muscle memory. The tremor in her hands vanished. It vanished every time her finger broke the trigger. The rhythm of her nerve damage became a metronome of death. 4.7 seconds between flawless shots. Her rounds were not normal. They were red-tipped. Experimental. They glowed faintly in the red emergency light. The first shot not only pierced armor. It fried the night vision gear of everyone near it. The second intercepted a flashbang. Mid-air. detonating it harmlessly outside the entrance. Rodriguez blinked. His mockery from earlier was now a bitter, painful memory. The woman he called Barbie Sniper was cutting through elite CIA black ops with a precision that defied comprehension. She was determined, not just to survive, but to save them all. Why did the rounds glow red in the dark? The range building became a crucible, a small island of resistance against a massive, coordinated elimination effort. The Black Ops team was relentless. They knew the layout. They knew the objective. But they didn't know Emily Carter. They didn't know the Rose rifle. Emily kept moving. Low, fast, unpredictable. She covered Rodriguez and Sullivan as they moved a stack of sandbags. Reloading, she shouted. Sullivan instinctively shifted to cover her flank. He was pouring fire into the doorway. They moved together, like they had trained side by side for years. The language of combat needed no rehearsal. Tyler Webb, wide-eyed but fighting, was laying down wild suppressive fire. He was hitting his targets. He was fighting for his life. Flashbang, Miller yelled, hitting the deck. Emily's rifle snapped up. Another impossible interception. The red-tipped round hit the grenade. A split second before it detonated. How? Miller gasped, his face covered in soot. Practice, Emily replied, her eyes tracking the next threat. The fire and thunder raged for 6 minutes. 6 minutes that stretched into an eternity. The Shadow Division had expected an easy cleanup. One woman. A handful of Marines. Instead, they were trapped, pinned down by precision fire, against Marines who refused to yield. Backed by a ghost from their darkest files. The tactical advantage belonged to Emily. She was fighting her war. The fight that had consumed her for 5 years. The fight to stay alive. The fight for truth. When the smoke finally thinned, the remaining operators pulled back. They dragged their wounded. They retreated to the waiting helicopters. The sound of the rotors faded. A fast retreating beat. The battle was over. The silence returned. It was heavy with cordite and adrenaline. Emily lowered her rifle at last. The tremor returned instantly. Worse than before. The adrenaline had faded. She slumped against the wall, staring at the Rose barrel. 7 rounds left, she whispered. Her voice was almost breaking. Rob would have been proud. Robert Carter. The name hung in the air. A team name. A brother's name. My teammate, my brother, she explained. He had built this rifle system. Every piece of it. The rose color was his joke. He had said, if I had to fight in a man's world, I might as well stand out. He designed the recoil dampening. The experimental glowing rounds. He died in Kandahar, buying her time to escape. He told me once that technology should save lives, not take them. The Marines fell silent around her. The woman they had mocked carried the grief of a brother lost. Rodriguez approached her slowly. His helmet off. His face covered in soot and shame. His voice, once mocking, carried only respect now. I owe you a tattoo, he said, and an apology. She managed the faintest smile. It was exhausted. You owe me nothing, gunnery sergeant. You fought. That's worth more than any bet. The sacrifice and grief she carried was immense. But she offered them absolution. A moment of pure human connection forged in fire. Why did a single brass casing carry the weight of a brother's death? The range building was a tomb of smoke and broken concrete. The air was still thick with the smell of gunpowder. But the silence was definitive. The ghost birds were gone. Emily's immediate crisis was over. But the larger war was just beginning. She was now officially alive, and the entire apparatus of her enemy knew exactly where she was. Colonel Hawkins was on the experimental radio. Her voice was low. Urgent. We have 14 down hostiles, all Shadow Division, unmarked transport, requesting immediate air support and a full general officer response. This is hostile action on a protected U.S. military installation. Her words cut through the remaining tension. This was no longer a misunderstanding. It was an act of war. Emily watched the sunrise through the shattered door. The rising sun cast long, dark shadows. She pulled out a small, encrypted drive. Attached to the dog tags. "Colonel," Emily said, her voice dry and tired, "this is everything, 5 years of documentation. Bishop's network, the payoff trails, the foreign accounts. The evidence is all there. You need to get this to the highest authority you can trust." Sullivan knelt beside her. He was quietly tending to a graze on her arm. He saw the raw exhaustion. The tremor was a violent shudder now. He knew she had been holding it back with sheer will. "You're done, Sergeant," he said gently. "You gave everything you had. We'll take it from here." Emily shook her head slowly. "It's never done, Master Sergeant, not until the handler is caught. Bishop took everything, my team, my life, my identity. And he made us look like traitors." The weight of that final accusation, traitor, was what had kept her going. It fueled her determination to return. Rodriguez knelt on the other side. He was placing his own helmet beside her. A gesture of solidarity. "I called you a Barbie, I filmed you, I wanted you gone," he confessed. "I'm sorry, Sergeant, I judged the book by the cover." Emily didn't hold his gaze. She looked at the brass casing in her palm, the one that had pierced 5 plates. "The best way to honor Rob is to see clearly," she said. "That's all any of us can do now." The rumble of armored vehicles shook the ground again. Louder this time. "Official. General Patricia Morrison. A 2-star. She strode into the smoking building. Her sharp eyes swept the scene. The unconscious operatives. The battered but alive Force Recon Marines. And one woman with trembling hands holding a rose-colored rifle. The general took in the scene. The destroyed door. The smell of high explosives. The silence of the professional fighters. Colonel Hawkins saluted. "Ma'am, this is Staff Sergeant Emily Carter, Phantom Team 7. She just led us in repelling an illegal CIA operation on Marine soil." The general's brow furrowed. "Phantom 7. Declared KIA." Emily straightened. Despite her exhaustion, she snapped to attention. She saluted. Her trembling hands were steady for the briefest moment. "Reports of my death were fabricated, ma'am. I survived." The general studied her for a long moment, assessing the truth, the courage, the exhaustion. Then, in front of everyone, she raised her hand. A perfect salute. "Welcome home, Sergeant." For 5 long years, Emily had carried her burden alone. She had been a ghost, a myth. Tears finally streamed down her face. They mixed with the soot. She returned the salute. It was her final, official act of redemption. For the first time since Kandahar, she wasn't a ghost. She was a Marine again. And the truth was free. Why did the retired general salute a staff sergeant? The events of Camp Pendleton were too big for official silence. Containment was impossible. Madison Brooks's live stream, though cut short, had already gone viral. Snippets of the impossible 6,000-meter shot. The sudden, chaotic intrusion. The retreat of the Black Ops teams. All broadcast on a shaky phone. The moment the Barbie sniper became a warrior, the narrative spread like wildfire. By nightfall, 25 million people had seen it. The mockery of the Barbie gun had transformed. It was now a symbol. It garnered deep respect across the military community. Rodriguez kept his word. The next morning, he was at the tattoo parlor. He had 2 words inked across his forearm. Bold and simple. Never judge. Other Marines followed his example, choosing their own message of humility. Respect first. Honor always. The collective arrogance of the Force Recon team was shattered, replaced by a profound sense of humility and brotherhood. Madison Brooks, shaken to her core, changed her life overnight. The comments section of her channel was a mirror. It showed her the shallow reality of her content. She deleted months of superficial posts. She dedicated her platform to highlighting overlooked veterans, to sharing stories of hidden strength. Her following doubled, not because of glamour shots, but because of stories that mattered. Emily's evidence was now in the hands of the Pentagon's Inspector General. Files, recordings, financial trails, everything pointing to Marcus Bishop, the CIA handler who had betrayed Phantom 7. The political earthquake began. 3 days later, Bishop was arrested at a private airfield, caught trying to flee the country. His capture unraveled a web of corruption. It stretched from Langley to foreign capitals. The silence around Phantom 7 was broken. The betrayal was acknowledged publicly. Their names were restored, their honor recognized. At Arlington National Cemetery, fresh headstones were unveiled for her teammates. They were no longer marked "Unknown Soldier." Robert Carter's stone bore a simple inscription: Inventor Friend. His legacy lived on in every impossible shot. Emily stood at attention, trembling hands wrapped in dress-white gloves. She saluted until her arm ached. Grief and pride finally blended in a semblance of peace. She had fulfilled her final, most difficult promise. The story was not just her own. It was about those who gave everything. And the simple moral truth: that courage often wears the most unexpected mask. The woman who was a joke was now a legend. A legend built on a 6,000-meter shot and a rose-colored rifle. How fast can a lie be unraveled by a single shot? The rebuilding took time. The political fallout was immense. But Emily Carter was officially reinstated. Not as an operative, but as an instructor. She was inducted into the Marine Corps' Advanced Marksmanship Program. Her expertise was too valuable to be hidden. She stood before a formation of young Marines, her rose rifle gleaming under the sun. She was teaching them to see, to feel the wind, to calculate the impossible. "You're going to hear about the 6,000-meter shot," she told them. Her voice was calm, resonant. The impossible math, the secret protocol. But what matters is this. She paused. Her tremor was a steady, low beat, a constant companion. 30 Marines stood beside me when it counted. Even after they mocked me. Even after they wanted me gone. That's the real lesson. The technology of the rifle is nothing. The technology of trust, the strength of the team, that's everything. She held up the rose rifle. The light caught the paint. It was not frivolous. It was defiant. You're going to learn to shoot, yes. But more than that, you're going to learn to see. To look past appearances, past prejudice. Because the most dangerous person on any battlefield isn't the one who looks dangerous. It's the one you underestimated. Her words resonated with the young recruits. They had all felt underestimated. They had all carried a hidden burden. She used her own story as a guide. The tremor in her hand, the nervous system damage. She taught them to weaponize their imperfections, to incorporate them into their routine. The 4.7-second pulse was no longer a defect. It was a firing sequence, a moment of absolute truth. She became known as Staff Sergeant Emily. No one dared call her Barbie Sniper now. But the legend of the Rose rifle persisted. She often met with Rodriguez. He proudly displayed his tattoo. They were partners in humility. He worked alongside Madison Brooks on veteran outreach programs. The trio, once symbols of conflict, were now a team, built on the ruins of their first meeting. Emily found peace in the routine, in the mentorship, in giving back to the Corps that had welcomed her home. It was not the life she had planned, but it was a life of purpose, a life of hopeful rebuilding. She had traded the silent war of the ghost for the loud, honest work of the teacher. And she was finally free. What do you whisper when you salute a weapon in a museum case? Years passed quickly. The Rose rifle was finally retired. It was placed in the Camp Pendleton Museum, encased in thick glass, displayed with dignity. At first glance, tourists reacted as the Marines once did. They laughed. Children giggled at the pink. Adults smirked at the perceived vanity. They saw a Barbie gun. But veterans reacted differently. Some froze, eyes widening in instant recognition. Others saluted quietly. They knew that garish Rose rifle wasn't a toy. It was a symbol, a reminder that strength can hide in the most unexpected places. A decade after the shot, a reunion was held. For those who had been there that morning, Rodriguez, now a Command Master Chief, was there. Madison, a prominent veteran advocate. Tyler Webb, a Sergeant Major. Sullivan, now retired. General Morrison, now retired, raised her glass. To the Rose rifle, she said. Her voice was rich with history. And to the woman who taught us that honor isn't about perfection. It's about standing when it counts. Rodriguez lifted his tattooed arm. Never judge. To never judging, he said, his voice deep with emotion. Tyler Webb added, to second chances. Madison whispered, to seeing clearly. Emily raised her own glass. Her hand still trembled with that eternal 4.7-second rhythm. It was a part of her now, a reminder of the cost of survival. To Robert Carter, who believed technology should save lives, not end them. And to all of you for proving Marines don't abandon anyone. Even someone mocked for carrying a Rose rifle. Laughter followed. Not the cruel laughter of that morning, but warm, inclusive laughter, born of family, born of shared fire. As the sun dipped over Camp Pendleton, the rifle gleamed in its museum case, forever misunderstood at first glance, but revered by those who knew the truth. Visitors would pause, skeptical, dismissive, but some, the underestimated in their own lives, would stop. They would salute and whisper a quiet thank you, because Emily Carter's shot wasn't just about 6,000 meters. It was about piercing through prejudice, shattering arrogance, proving that strength isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it trembles. Sometimes it wears scars. Sometimes it's painted rose. Her legacy lived not in the weapon, but in the changed hearts of every Marine, who once laughed and later stood shoulder to shoulder with her. The Rose rifle was not a punchline. It was a monument, a whisper of an impossible moment, a silent lesson in resilience. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.